The Coalition's outer defense grid around Keth Prime had been failing for weeks. 3 months into the Hive War, Commander Vel stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stalwart Defender, and watched another of his support vessels dissolve under concentrated bioplasma. The ship's death throes played out in eerie silence across the main view screen, its hull bubbling away like flesh under acid. "Tactical, give me options," Vel demanded, his four-fingered hands tightening on the command rail. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the red emergency lighting, sending crimson patterns dancing across the deck. "None, Commander," came the reply. "Conventional energy weapons continue to prove ineffective. The Hive vessels have adapted their outer membranes to disperse our fire." Vel's secondary heart constricted. The Hive had first appeared at the Coalition's outer rim 3 standard cycles ago. Mysterious bioships that consumed everything in their path. Initial encounters had been favorable. Coalition energy weapons had cut through the organic hulls with ease. But with each engagement, the Hive learned, evolved, adapted. Now energy weapons barely penetrated their constantly shifting armor. "Admiral Rex is requesting an update, sir," his communications officer said. Vel swallowed his pride. "Put him through." The hollow display shimmered, and Admiral Rex's imposing form materialized. Even in miniature, the Admiral's silver-blue carapace and the ornate insignia of the Coalition High Command were intimidating. "Commander Vel," Rex's voice was cold. "Your sector was supposed to hold for at least another week. My tactical displays suggest you're down to less than half your original fleet. The Hive has evolved again, Admiral. Our weapons barely scratch them now." Rex's compound eyes narrowed. "Then you're not firing enough of them. The Coalition Council expects Keth Prime to be defended. Commander, 11 billion sentients depend on it. With respect, Admiral, we need reinforcements. The Stalwart is your most advanced warship, and even we—" "Reinforcements?" Rex laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "From where, Commander? Every battle-ready vessel is already engaged across 17 systems." Vel hesitated. "What about the new applicants? Sir, the humans?" Rex's mandibles twitched, in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Those primitive mammals. They're barely out of their gravity well. Their ships still use reaction drives and kinetic weapons. Their application to the Coalition was a gesture of diplomatic courtesy. Nothing more. But they've responded to our distress signals." "Out of the question. Focus on your duty, Commander. Rex out." The transmission cut, leaving Vel staring at empty space. Another explosion rocked the ship. "Sir, we've lost the Vigilant Dawn," his tactical officer reported. "The Hive is converging on Keth Prime's orbital defenses. Breakthrough is imminent." Vel straightened his spine. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Coalition and civilian bands. This is Commander Vel of the Coalition vessel, Stalwart Defender. This is our last stand. Any vessels within range. We require immediate assistance. I repeat, this is our last stand." 3 days out from Earth, Captain Maria Torres of the civilian freighter, Star Runner, was completing her routine checks when her communications officer, Jenkins, called her to the bridge. "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal. Coalition frequencies." Torres frowned. The Star Runner was a retrofitted cargo hauler, now serving as an independent trader between Earth and the handful of colonies humanity had established in nearby systems. They'd had minimal contact with the Coalition, the vast interstellar alliance that had, somewhat patronizingly, accepted Earth's application for membership only last year. "Let's hear it," she said. Jenkins played the message. Commander Vel's voice, translated through their rudimentary alien language systems, sounded desperate. "This is our last stand." Torres ran a hand through her short black hair. "How far are we from the transmission source?" "Keth Prime, about 2 weeks at our maximum velocity. Too far to help directly." Torres paced the small bridge. "But we could forward this to Earth Command. They've been eager to prove our worth to the Coalition. Her first officer, Davidson, looked uncomfortable. Captain, we're a civilian vessel. If we pass this along, we're involving ourselves in a war. If the Hive consumes Coalition worlds, how long before they find Earth? Torres countered. You've seen the intelligence reports. These things eat planets, Davidson. They strip them to the bedrock and move on. She stared at the repeating distress signal on her console. The Coalition had been dismissive of humanity since first contact, treating them like primitive curiosities. But this wasn't about pride. Send the signal to Earth Command, she decided. Include our position and heading. Tell them we'll render any assistance we can. Davidson nodded grimly. Yes, Captain. Torres looked out at the stars beyond their viewport. And may God help us all. At Earth Command headquarters in Geneva, General Sophia Adams reviewed the transmission from the Star Runner with a grim expression. The Coalition had been clear about humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. Observer status only, not active participants. But the distress call had been broadcast on civilian frequencies too. They could legitimately respond. How quickly can we mobilize? She asked her staff. Colonel Wei checked his tablet. The 3rd Marine Battalion is on standby. The 7th Fleet is completing exercises in the Jupiter Theater. If we recall them immediately, we could have a response force ready in 48 hours. And time to Keth Prime? 10 days at emergency FTL, replied Wei. We'd be pushing our drives beyond safety margins. Adams nodded. Do it. Inform the President I'm activating the first contact defense protocol. Ma'am, interjected another officer. The Coalition Council specifically requested that we not involve ourselves in their conflict with the Hive. Adams raised an eyebrow. Did they now? Interesting how quickly that changes when they're losing. She stood, straightening her uniform. The distress call was sent on open channels. Under space law, we have not only the right but the obligation to respond. Prepare the fleet. As the officers dispersed, Adams turned away. And Colonel, tell the Marines to pack their projectile weapons. All of them. Within hours, Earth's response had begun. The 3rd Marine Battalion, veterans of the Mars Rebellion, were loading onto transports. The 7th Fleet, consisting of Earth's newest warships, still primitive by Coalition standards, but armed with both energy and kinetic weapons, broke orbit and aligned for faster-than-light transit. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez supervised her platoon as they secured their equipment. Unlike the elegant energy weapons of the Coalition, human arsenals were diverse and brutal. Railguns, coil guns, and even chemically propelled firearms, modified for vacuum operations, but fundamentally unchanged from their ancient designs. Think these will actually work against these Hive things? LT? Asked Private Johnson, patting his heavy Gauss rifle. Intel says the Hive adapts to energy weapons, Maya replied. No reports of them facing good old-fashioned slugs. Sometimes the old ways are best. Colonel James Davis, commanding officer of the 3rd Battalion, entered the bay. Listen up, Marines. We're heading into unknown territory against an enemy that's giving an advanced alien coalition hell. They think we're primitives. They think we're soft. He grinned. Let's show them what Earth's finest can do. A cheer went up from the assembled troops. Remember your training, Davis continued. Remember Earth. And remember, we're the toughest sons of bitches in this arm of the galaxy, because we come from the meanest planet around. Aboard the stalwart Defender, Commander Vell was running out of options. 3 more ships had fallen in the past day. The Hive biovessels had broken through the outer defense grid and were now directly assaulting Keth Prime's orbital platforms. From the surface, 11 billion people watched their doom approach. Sir, new contacts emerging from FTL, his sensor officer reported suddenly. Multiple signatures. Configuration unknown. Vell frowned. Hive reinforcements? Negative. They're broadcasting coalition recognition codes. Earth Defense Force. Humans? Vell couldn't hide his shock. Here? The communications officer looked up. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, Indomitable. The view screen shifted to show a human female in a crisp uniform. This is General Sophia Adams of Earth Command. We received your distress call and are here to render assistance. Please advise on the tactical situation. Vel composed himself quickly. General Adams, this is Commander Vel. Your arrival is unexpected. The Hive has broken through our outer defenses and is converging on Keth Prime. Their bioships have adapted to our energy weapons. Adams nodded. So, we've heard. Request permission to engage the enemy. With all due respect, General, your vessels are not equipped for this conflict. The Hive will... Let us worry about that, Commander. Hold your position and observe. The transmission cut, leaving Vel speechless. His tactical officer spoke up hesitantly. Sir, the human vessels are deploying projectile weapons? Projectiles, Vel nearly laughed. Against Hive armor. But his laughter died as he watched the human fleet engage. Instead of the elegant, silent energy beams of coalition weapons, the human ships fired physical munitions. Massive tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds. Where coalition energy weapons had dissipated harmlessly against the Hive's adaptive armor, the kinetic impacts tore straight through. Impossible, Vel whispered. The humans weren't using sophisticated targeting computers either. They simply saturated space with projectiles, creating kill zones that the Hive ships couldn't navigate without being shredded. His communications officer turned to him, mandibles spread in the equivalent of a shocked expression. Sir, Admiral Rex is demanding an update. Vel smiled grimly. Put him through. He's going to want to see this. Admiral Rex was livid. You authorized human intervention? The Coalition Council will have your carapace for this. Commander. I didn't authorize anything, Admiral, Vel replied calmly. They responded to an open distress call, as is their right under Coalition law. And they're winning. The tactical display told the story. 3 Hive vessels had already been destroyed, their organic hulls punctured in multiple places by human kinetic weapons. The remaining Hive ships were attempting to adapt, thickening their armor. But physics was physics. No biological system could evolve quickly enough to withstand projectiles carrying that much energy. Primitive weapons, Rex muttered. But the disdain in his voice had been replaced by grudging interest. Primitive but effective, sir, Vel noted. The Hive has never encountered them before. They have no defense. On the tactical display, a human vessel took a direct hit from a bioplasma discharge. Instead of disintegrating like Coalition ships, it simply rotated, bringing undamaged armor to bear while continuing to fire. Their ships are compartmentalized, Vel explained. Damage in one section doesn't compromise the whole. Rex's compound eyes narrowed. A crude but practical design. They're requesting ground forces, Vel added. They believe they can clear the Hive presence from Keth Prime's surface. That's suicide, Rex scoffed. The Hive drones emit psychic fields that incapacitate most sentience. The humans claim to be resistant. Rex hesitated, mandibles working silently. Finally, he said. Very well. Allow them to attempt a ground assault. But you will accompany them, Commander. I want a full report on their capabilities. The first human troops landed on Keth Prime 12 hours later. Commander Vel, fitted with an emergency environment suit to match the human equipment, watched as the Marines of 3rd Battalion deployed from their dropships, where Coalition soldiers moved with precision and elegance. The humans were brutally efficient, securing their landing zone with overlapping fields of fire. Colonel Davis approached Vel, his environment suit marked with leadership insignia. Commander, good to have you with us. My troops are ready to push toward the primary Hive concentration. Vel eyed the human weapons uneasily. Most carried what appeared to be primitive slug throwers, though some hefted larger weapons he couldn't identify. Your forces should prepare for psychic assault, Vel warned. The Hive drones emit fields that overwhelm most neural systems. Davis nodded. We've been briefed. Our brains seem to be wired differently enough that we have some natural resistance. Plus, we've got these. He tapped his helmet. Psionic dampeners. Not perfect, but they should help. And your weapons? Will they be as effective as your ship-based systems? Davis grinned. Ever heard of a shotgun, Commander? Sometimes the old solutions work best. The advance into Keth Prime's capital was unlike any military operation Vel had witnessed. The once beautiful crystal spires of the city were now coated with the hive's organic growths, pulsing membranes and tendrils that turned the metropolis into an alien landscape. Hive drones, insectoid creatures the size of small vehicles, patrolled the streets. Where coalition forces would have established a perimeter and advanced methodically with synchronized energy fire, the humans used what they called fire and maneuver tactics. Small teams moved independently, supporting each other with crossing fields of fire. Their projectile weapons tore through the chitinous armor of the drones, splattering ichor across the crystalline buildings. Vel stayed with Colonel Davis's command group, watching in amazement as the humans pushed forward relentlessly. When they encountered a particularly dense cluster of drones, they deployed heavier weapons, shoulder-fired rockets, and what they called grenade launchers that devastated the hive formations. Your tactics are unorthodox, Vel commented as they secured another block. Davis shrugged. We fight with what we have. Commander, Earth's a tough planet. We evolved as pursuit predators. We can keep going when most species would quit. A Marine called out a warning, and Vel felt it, the psychic pressure of approaching hive drones, a sensation like ice forming inside his brain. Several coalition soldiers who had joined the advance collapsed, clutching their heads. But the humans simply adjusted their helmets and readied their weapons. Here they come, Davis said calmly. Fire at will. The ensuing battle was chaotic but decisive. The drones, accustomed to enemies incapacitated by their psychic fields, were unprepared for the humans' resistance. Shotguns and automatic weapons tore them apart at close range. Lieutenant Maya led a flanking maneuver, her team cutting through a side street to hit the drones from an unexpected angle. Vel watched her take down 3 drones in rapid succession with precise headshots. Your soldiers fight like they've done this before, Vel said to Davis as the last drone fell. Humans have been fighting each other for millennia, Davis replied grimly. We're good at war. Too good, sometimes. As they secured the area, Sergeant Lopez approached with a coalition energy rifle he'd picked up from a fallen soldier. Colonel, I think we might be able to modify these. The power source is solid, but the emission system is all wrong for fighting these bugs. Davis turned to Vel. Would you object to my engineer examining your weapons? We might be able to improve their effectiveness. Vel hesitated only briefly. If it helps defeat the hive, you have my permission. Within hours, Sergeant Lopez and a human scientist, Dr. Jessica Kane, had set up an impromptu workshop in a secured building. They disassembled several coalition energy rifles under the wary eyes of coalition technical specialists. The problem isn't the power source, Lopez explained to a growing audience of both human and coalition officers. It's the delivery system. These rifles are designed to deliver energy in a controlled beam that the hive has learned to disperse. Dr. Kane nodded, her fingers moving deftly over the alien technology. But what if we modify them to deliver the energy in kinetic form? Like this. She made an adjustment, and the rifle hummed differently. When she fired at a test target, instead of an energy beam, it delivered what appeared to be a superheated projectile that punched straight through the armored plate. We're essentially using your power source to create and accelerate a plasma slug, she explained. The hive can adapt to energy dispersion, but they can't change the laws of physics. Mass times acceleration equals force. Vel examined the modified weapon. You've turned our precision instruments into projectile throwers. Essentially, yes, Kane said. Sorry about that, but they'll work now. The news from orbit was equally promising. The human fleet, joined by the remaining coalition vessels, had driven back the Hive bioships. Several had been destroyed, while others retreated to a higher orbit. But the largest, a massive organic structure the size of a small moon, remained in position above the capital city. "That's the command vessel," Vel explained during a strategy session. "We believe it houses the Hive Queen, the central intelligence that controls all Hive organisms." General Adams, joining via hologram from her flagship, studied the tactical display. "If we take out the Queen, would that neutralize the rest of the Hive?" "In theory, yes," Vel admitted. "But the vessel's organic hull is now too thick for even your kinetic weapons to penetrate from orbit, and its internal defenses are formidable." Lieutenant Maya leaned forward. "So we board it." The room fell silent. "That would be suicide," Vel said finally. "No boarding party has ever returned from a Hive vessel." "No coalition boarding party," Colonel Davis corrected. "But we're not coalition." General Adams considered the proposal. "A small team might be able to penetrate the hull with breaching charges. Once inside, they could place nuclear devices at critical junctions." "The psychic field would be overwhelming," Vel warned. "Even with your resistance and dampeners, that close to the Queen." "We'll need volunteers," Davis said. "The best we have." Maya stood. "I volunteer, sir." "As do I," Davis replied. "General, request permission to lead this mission." Adams nodded gravely. "Permission granted. Colonel, assemble your team, and Commander Vel. We would welcome any coalition personnel willing to join this mission. Your knowledge of Hive biology could be invaluable." Vel straightened. "I will accompany the boarding party myself, General." Over the next 12 hours, a volunteer force was assembled, 20 human Marines led by Colonel Davis and Lieutenant Maya, accompanied by Commander Vel and 3 coalition specialists. They modified their environmental suits to withstand the corrosive atmosphere inside the Hive vessel and loaded them with as many weapons and explosives as they could carry. Dr. Kane briefed them on what to expect. The interior will be organic, living tissue constantly shifting and adapting. The atmosphere is toxic to both humans and coalition species, and the psychic pressure will increase the closer you get to the Queen. "How will we find her?" Maya asked. "Follow the psychic gradient," Vel suggested. "The pressure will be strongest near the Queen's chamber." Private Johnson, one of Maya's most reliable soldiers, checked his modified shotgun. "So we follow the headache. Got it." "The plan is simple," Davis said. "We breach. We plant charges at structural points identified by Commander Vel, and we extract. The nukes are on timers. We'll have 30 minutes to clear the blast radius." Captain Torres, whose Star Runner had been converted to a support vessel, would pilot the insertion craft, a modified mining shuttle, reinforced with additional armor. "I'll get you there and back," she promised. "Just make sure that thing dies." The mood was somber as the boarding party made final preparations. Everyone understood the stakes and the odds. "If we fail," Vel said quietly to Davis, "there will be nothing to stop the Hive from consuming Keth Prime and moving on to other worlds." Davis nodded. "Then we won't fail, Commander." The insertion was a nightmare of fire and organic matter. The Star Runner's modified shuttle accelerated toward the massive Hive vessel, dodging streams of bioplasma. Coalition and human ships provided covering fire, drawing the vessel's defensive responses away from the tiny craft. "Approaching breach point," Torres called from the pilot's seat. "Brace for impact." The shuttle's reinforced prow, loaded with breaching explosives, slammed into the Hive vessel's hull. Detonation was immediate, blasting a hole through layers of organic armor. Torres held the shuttle steady as the boarding party rushed through the breach into the alien vessel. "Go, go, go!" Davis shouted, leading the way. The interior was worse than they had imagined. Pulsating walls of living tissue, dripping with corrosive fluids. The air, despite their suit filters, smelled of rot and chemicals, and the psychic pressure, like a vice tightening around their skulls. "Move fast," Maya ordered her team. "First junction is 50 meters ahead." They advanced through twisting corridors that seemed to breathe and shift around them. Twice, the walls themselves tried to close in, nearly crushing Marines before shotgun blasts forced the tissue to recoil. Vel consulted a biological scanner. "First target located. This appears to be a primary neural pathway." Sergeant Lopez placed the first nuclear charge, securing it to what looked like a massive nerve cluster. "Charge set, moving to the next point." The deeper they pushed, the stronger the psychic assault became. 2 coalition specialists collapsed, blood leaking from their sensory organs. 3 Marines fell back, vomiting inside their helmets, unable to continue. "It's trying to get in our heads," Johnson gasped. "Showing me things." "Focus on your training," Maya said, though her own voice was strained. "Remember Earth. Remember what we're fighting for." They reached the second junction, another nerve cluster, and placed another charge. But as they turned toward the third target, they encountered resistance. Specialized hive drones, different from those on the planet's surface, emerged from the walls themselves. These were smaller but faster, with razor-sharp appendages designed for close-quarters combat inside the vessel. "Contact front!" Maya shouted, opening fire with her modified coalition rifle. The plasma slugs tore through the first wave of drones, but more kept coming. The corridor became a killing ground. Humans and coalition troops fired in all directions as drones attacked from walls, ceiling, and floor. Johnson went down with a drone's claw through his leg. Private Wilson dragged him behind their defensive line. "We're getting close to something important," Davis shouted over the gunfire. "They're throwing everything at us." Vel, firing one of the modified rifles with surprising accuracy, pointed ahead. "The Queen's chamber must be through that membrane." The membrane was a massive wall of pulsating tissue that blocked the corridor. As they watched, it thickened visibly, reinforcing itself against their approach. "Lopez!" Davis called. "Breaching charge!" The sergeant rushed forward under covering fire, planting a powerful explosive on the membrane. The team fell back, and the detonation ripped a hole in the living wall. Beyond lay a vast chamber, larger than seemed possible within the vessel, and at its center, suspended in a web of neural tissue, was the Hive Queen. She was enormous, easily the size of a small spacecraft, with a bloated, pulsing body and a crown-like structure that emitted visible waves of psychic energy. Multiple limbs twitched and gestured, controlling her vast network of drones and ships. And she was aware of them. The psychic assault redoubled. Maya fell to her knees, blood trickling from her nose. Davis staggered, barely keeping his footing. Even Vel, with his crystalline neural structure, trembled under the onslaught. "The charges," Davis gasped. "We need to place the final charges." "Cover me," Maya said, forcing herself upright. She grabbed the remaining nuclear devices, stumbling toward the Queen's neural web. A fresh wave of drones poured into the chamber, and the surviving Marines formed a defensive perimeter, firing desperately to keep them back. Johnson, despite his wounded leg, propped himself against a wall and emptied magazine after magazine into the advancing horde. Vel joined Maya, supporting her as they approached the Queen. The psychic pressure was nearly unbearable now. Images of death, of failure, of homeworlds burning flashed through their minds. "She's afraid," Vel realized suddenly. "She knows what we're doing." Maya nodded grimly, blood now streaming from her ears as well. "Good, she should be." With trembling hands, she placed the nuclear charges directly on the Queen's neural web, activating the timers. 30 minutes, she gasped. "We need to move." "All units, fall back," Davis ordered over the comm. "Charges set. Return to extraction point." The retreat was chaos. Drones pursued them relentlessly through the shifting corridors. 2 more Marines fell, then another coalition specialist. The survivors fired continuously, creating a moving wall of firepower to keep the drones at bay. "Something's wrong," Lopez shouted as they neared the breach point. "The hull is sealing itself." The organic entrance they had blasted was indeed closing, living tissue knitting itself together to trap them inside. "Torres!" Davis called over the comm. "We need immediate extraction. Hull breach is closing." "On my way," came the reply. "Hold position." They formed a defensive circle at the shrinking breach, firing outward at the swarm of drones. The timer on Maya's wrist showed 20 minutes remaining. "We're not going to make it," Johnson said quietly. "Like hell we aren't," Maya replied. "Torres will come through." As if on cue, the hull behind them exploded inward as the Star Runner's shuttle rammed through the partially sealed breach, creating a new opening. "Sorry for the rough entry," Torres called. "All aboard, who's coming aboard?" The survivors piled into the shuttle, laying down covering fire until the last person was inside. Vel, the final one through, barely cleared the hatch before Torres punched the engines to full power. "Hang on," she warned as the shuttle tore free of the Hive vessel's grasp. Behind them, the massive bioship began to shudder, as if sensing its impending doom. Bioplasma weapons fired wildly, most missing the nimble shuttle as Torres pushed the engines beyond their design limits. "Time?" Davis asked Maya. She checked her timer. 12 minutes. "Not enough distance," Torres said grimly. "We need at least 15 to clear the blast radius." Vel moved to the cockpit. "The Coalition fleet can help. All vessels. This is Commander Vel. The target has been neutralized. Extraction shuttle requires immediate assistance. Prepare for nuclear detonation in 11 minutes. The response was immediate. Coalition and human ships converged on their position, laying down suppressing fire against the Hive vessel. A Coalition cruiser moved into position, extending its energy shields to create a corridor for the shuttle's escape. 8 minutes, Maya reported, her voice weak from the aftereffects of the psychic assault. Torres pushed the shuttle harder, the hull creaking under the strain. Coalition vessels escorted them, forming a protective bubble as they raced away from the Hive command ship. 5 minutes. "We're at minimum safe distance," Torres announced finally. "Barely." They watched on the shuttle's rear cameras as the countdown reached 0. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, simultaneously, all the nuclear charges detonated inside the Hive vessel. The explosion was unlike anything they had seen before. The bioship didn't simply fragment. It seemed to rupture from within, psychic energy discharging in visible waves as the Queen died. The neural network connecting all Hive organisms shattered. On Keth Prime's surface, Hive drones collapsed mid-attack, suddenly autonomous and confused. In orbit, the remaining bioships drifted, their coordinated movements replaced by random, spasmodic twitches. "We did it," Maya whispered, watching the massive command vessel dissolve into a cloud of organic debris. Davis nodded, squeezing her shoulder. "We did it, Lieutenant." In the aftermath, Keth Prime began the long process of recovery. Human medical teams deployed to the surface, sharing antibiotics and treatments unknown to Coalition medicine. The modified hybrid weapons proved highly effective in eliminating remaining Hive organisms. Coalition ships, with human assistance, tracked down and destroyed 9 retreating bioships in record time. Admiral Rex arrived personally to oversee the reconstruction efforts. He found Commander Vel in a field hospital, where human doctors were treating Coalition wounded with surprisingly effective techniques. "Commander," Rex greeted him, his tone markedly different from their previous conversations. "Your report was illuminating." Vel stood, still weak from his ordeal aboard the Hive vessel. "Thank you, Admiral. The humans proved themselves beyond any expectation." Rex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Yes, their technology is crude, but their biology, remarkable. They function in environments that would kill most Coalition species. They resist psychic influence that incapacitates our strongest warriors, and their tactical adaptability is unparalleled." Deathworlders, Vel said, using the term Dr. Kane had explained to him. Their homeworld tried to kill them every day of their evolution. It made them incredibly resilient. Indeed, Rex straightened. I've spoken with the Coalition Council. Earth's application for membership has been reassessed. They will be offered full status, with a seat on the Defense Committee. Vel couldn't hide his surprise. That's unprecedented for such a young species. These are unprecedented times, Commander. Rex looked around at the human medical staff, working tirelessly to save Coalition lives. And we may need more like them. 3 days later, representatives from Earth and the Coalition gathered aboard the stalwart defender for a formal ceremony. General Adams and Captain Torres stood alongside Colonel Davis and Lieutenant Maya, still recovering from her injuries, but insistent on attending. Admiral Rex addressed the assembled dignitaries. On behalf of the Coalition Council, I extend our deepest gratitude to the people of Earth for their invaluable assistance in defeating the Hive threat. Today, we formally recognize Earth as a full member of the Coalition, with all rights and responsibilities therein. Applause filled the chamber, both human and alien. Furthermore, Rex continued, in light of recent events, I am proposing the establishment of a new division within our defense forces, the Deathworld Corps. Earth will lead our efforts to identify and recruit other species who evolved in similarly challenging environments. Director Sarah Walsh, Earth's diplomatic representative, stepped forward. We accept this honor and responsibility. Humanity has much to learn from the Coalition, but perhaps we have some things to teach as well. Captain Torres, standing at the back of the gathering, found Commander Vel watching the proceedings with a thoughtful expression. Quite a change from primitive mammals, she noted. Vel's crystalline features shifted in what Torres had learned was a smile. The Coalition has existed for 10,000 years. Captain, in all that time, we've prized technological advancement above all else. We forgot that technology is only as good as the beings who wield it. And those beings are only as good as the worlds that forge them, Torres added. Indeed. Vel looked out the viewport, where Coalition and human ships now patrolled together. The Hive may return, or worse, threats may emerge from the darkness between stars. But for the first time in many cycles, I feel hope. As the ceremony concluded, human and alien soldiers gathered on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. They stood shoulder to shoulder, veterans of the same battle, defenders of the same principles, the beginning of a new era in the galaxy's history. Among them, Lieutenant Maya noticed several Coalition officers examining human weapons with newfound respect. Nearby, Sergeant Lopez was teaching a group of Coalition engineers how to modify their energy rifles, and Colonel Davis was deep in conversation with Admiral Rex, already planning joint training exercises. The age of the Deathworlders had begun,